How you going, guys, and welcome back to the channel. Here I have a stunning How you going, guys, and welcome back to the channel. Here I have a stunning example of a H series ute. Don't ask me which one because the tags have flown off. But paid a little bit too much for this car. But as you can see, what we have in the back here is this guy. Now, my money's riding on this motor to run. Had a quick look over it. Talked to the bloke who owned it previously. Lovely bloke. He was 84 years old. He showed me his car. He went to a 308. This motor had an Aussie 4-speed hooked up to the back of it. As you can see, there's a flywheel and a clutch there. He said this was a beautiful runner. Now, this hasn't ran for 10 years, so there's going to be a little bit of prep work before I can key this thing over. He did tell me it had Holden push rods in it, and he told me that about half a dozen times. When I asked him why it had Holden push rods on it, his answer was because Aussie 4-speed. And you know what, that's the most plausible answer I've ever heard. So we're going to get this up to the shed. We're going to reef it out the back of this ute and set it up on the floor and start getting to work on it. Alright, before I jump ahead of myself, I've got to nick a few bits from another motor. What I'm doing here is just taking some parts off of a spare motor. I need a flex plate. The other motor's got a flywheel because it's a manual. The motor that I got didn't have any bolts for the flywheel to bolt to the crank, so they're different between auto and manual. The manual ones are a bit longer, so I didn't have any on hand. So the next best thing was to just nick a flex plate and the auto bolts that go into the crank, and also I had to steal the distributor clamp and bolt out of this motor for this little 253. So once I got all that off, I can back the car up to the shed and start getting to work on it. You're too far away to see that. The car's got no steering wheel. It's just a steering box, and you can't really steer it from the steering box. So I went and kicked the tyre to turn it, and I snapped the valve stem off. So now we've got to change the tyre. Alright, so I've got this on the engine stand now. Got the starter hooked up. As you can see, I've got a battery hooked up. Done a few other little things, making sure things are where they're supposed to be, and now we can do this. So now we're going to take the rocket cover off, set it at the top dead center, and then we're going to drop the dizzy in. So let's go. Alright, so because I'm just getting a motor running in this video, or attempting to, I'm going to take all the cautionary steps to show you guys what you can do to set timing. If you find yourself setting timing and it backfiring through the carb, this might help you out. So what I'm going to do here first is I'm going to rip the rocker cover off, only the one, and that is because I want to be able to see that the number one inlet and outlet valve is shut. Also to show that it's quite clean inside the valve train. Next up, I'm just pulling the plug out, and I'll crank her over till I get to top dead center. Checking the valves, make sure they're both shut. Piston's at the top. I was lucky with this one because you can actually see the piston at the top of the bore, which is a new thing for me, that's for sure. So once they're done, I can go ahead and locate my dizzy. All right, so I've got my timing set at 0, top dead center. You would have seen me with the screwdriver in there. I can check it on my valves because they're both shut. Now I've got my dizzy here. This is a Bosch HEI. As you can see, I want to use this one as number 1, so I've marked it there with texter. So what we're going to do now is rip the cap off. And then we're going to sit the dizzy in. As you can see, it's got dots all along here, and don't go off them because they're not where the bit will sit. As you can see, it's well, that's not even in the right spot. Maybe like this is better. As you can see, it's nowhere near. So what we want to do is we want to go off the line. The line's going to be set up at 1 o'clock with a electronic dizzy. They set up at 1 o'clock on the clock. Obviously this one's backwards, so we're at 6 o'clock at the moment, but with the points you want to set it up to the number 1 cylinder. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this a bit back from where I want it to go, because as it drops down, these gears are going to fall into place and they're going to move the rider button along. So as I go down, you also want to be mindful of where your module and your vacuum advance is, because they could pin up against the manifold. These ones are notorious for doing that, and you want it so you've got enough to either advance or retard it. Now I've dropped that down and that's pretty much bang on. I could just tweak it bee's dick and I'm on the money there. So I'm going to go on and lock him down and start running some leads. So as you can see here, this is what you have to be mindful of, because this for the vacuum advance is, you know, very tight there, but I've got it set up at 0, so I should just need to advance it, not retard it, because yeah, there's not a lot of real estate there, so be mindful of that if you're not confident in setting timing. But yeah, that should be ready to go once I've run leads. I'll yeah, we could kick it over and see if it will fire. Alright, so we're up to the most crucial part of starting up one of these cars, and that is the oil pump. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to undo these 4 bolts here and bring the oil pump up, and we're going to go up to the bench and split it and pack the gears, and we'll talk more about it then. Alright, so now we're going to split this oil pump. We've got one 5/16 bolt there and another one on the other side, and once these undo, depending on how nice they want to be to me, that one was easy, good. They'll show you the pump gears. So we'll get this one undone, get them out the way. Now these, I'm pretty sure have a gasket in between them. I haven't done one for a while, but I'm 99% sure they have a gasket between them. Just a paper gasket. Alright, so here are the gears once we've got it split. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be pulling each gear out and putting Vaseline or petroleum jelly, whatever you want to call it, in the spaces all here. I'm not going to pack this whole thing to the brim full of petroleum jelly or Vaseline. That's not what you need to do here. All that you want to do is you want to put a bit of something in between these gears to create a vacuum, so it will draw up the oil as it starts, because as it sits here, all that's going to happen when you run the motor, if it's like this, is it's just going to spin around and you're going to run the car with no oil getting up to the heads, and yeah, it could be pretty costly. So here's one gear. The other gear normally has the spline to it. So there's the second gear, so you can't mix them around. And what I'll do is I'll probably wipe all this oil off, and then I'll have to find the vasi. But yeah, that's all we're doing here. Alright, so there, I'll clean that end. Make sure you don't get any flint on it. That's him. So I'm going to grab some vasi. Here it is, nothing special. All that you want to do is just put a bit in the gear here to initiate that vacuum suction to draw up the oil. Just a little bit of incentive. So I'll go along and do all of these and should be good to go. Got it moving in the line now. We've got 10. Alright, so that is it for this thing. We got it running, we got it idling, starts up straight away, which hopefully means that I've got the timing right. I only had one little hiccup, which I'll bring you in for to have a look, and that was this choke here. What this choke was doing, it was, I'm pretty sure it's electric. I'm not sure. It's got a vacuum line that goes there to the base of the carby, and it would hold the throttle blade shut. So once I just cable tied this out of the way, it started a lot nicer, and yeah, that problem was resolved. But yeah, this motor's up for 10 years, maybe even more. I got told 10 years, but that was just off the top of his head. But yeah, this 10 years or more, started up, ran, idled, Carby didn't leak. Carby was all sealed up. It did leak a tiny bit out of the accelerator pump at the top, but I could have been overfilling the bowls. But yeah, really happy with it. It as you can see, I've set up a full exhaust here with mufflers just to quieten things down. But I didn't really need to, because this thing had no lifter tick, no nothing. Got oil up to the rockers and in the head, and yeah, 50 pounds of oil pressure. And yeah, this is a really good motor, so I'm really happy with that. So if you liked the video, if it was helpful, if you learned something, how to start a motor that's sat for a long time, give it a like, give it a comment, and subscribe to the channel. And until then, take it easy.